just you get to choose. Right? Like here's the scenario. The environment gives us something which can be perceived as negative, can be perceived as not working, can be perceived as problematic. The world's ending. But we get to choose to see it like that, or we get to choose to see it as an opportunity.
So clearly that it's my responsibility now to do that for other people. If I have information and, other people's success is my success and vice versa.
Because you know what? Like, the challenges or the roadblocks are the journey themselves.
There's no big things. It's all little things compounding on top of each other. Coach, I'm currently on day 2 of a 3-day fast. Figured we could start our conversation today with that.
All right. So how many hours are you in right now?
I'm probably pushing around 36.
Awesome.
Well, with sleep the night before, it might be closer to 48. So yeah, probably close to 2 full days here.
See, okay. So you're not even timing it. You're just like, oh, it's somewhere between like 36 and 48. That's a huge difference.
Well, the extra, whatever that is, 12 hours would be the sleep of the night before. So I did it.
Well, that definitely counts. Like whenever you ate the last thing you ate,
right,
is what counts, not the sleep, I'd say. All right.
Yeah.
So talk me through that a little bit, because the furthest I've gone is 27 hours. Okay. And that's always felt pretty good. I've never gone, well, I think I'm just going to skip this evening as well and just do the whole, like another 14, 15 hours on top of it. But what's been your experience so far?
Amazingly, I'm not hungry. I mean, I could eat. I would enjoy. What's that?
Have you gone through that and come out the other side of it?
No, I haven't been hungry. I've had cravings. I've wanted to eat, but if I really am honest with my body, I'm not really like chomping at the bit to get food in it. So that's number one.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Number 2 is that my body seems really sensitive to emotions and even my own intuition, which is the purpose that I did this. I wanted to really get in touch with, I don't know, some higher wisdom or some things that I might channel that come to me. Like, it's the old adage about thinking. We don't really think our thoughts, so they just pop in. I'd like to, it was more of an experiment of like, well, how might this work? What's going to happen if I, don't maybe numb my body's sensations by way of food. And I'm coming to realize that might be a habit of mine. I think that's very common actually in amongst people, although they might not even know it themselves. And I'm also really tuned into the patterns of it's this time, so it's time to eat. I haven't eaten in a while, so when's my next meal coming from? Like a lot of my life centers around when I'm going to eat next.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I've heard that distinction before, for sure, because we organise our life around that. Oh, let's go out for dinner. Let's go out for breakfast.
Exactly.
I'll see you at lunch. Right? It's like if you take that away, one of the things I was thinking about recently, which is relevant to this conversation, is that before I moved house a lot, and I think I shared that with you, and it's nice to not move house and have everything in one place, because it's like, oh my goodness, I've got to move it all again, or I don't set things up properly because I know I'd probably have to move it again. But so it's nice to be up in one place, but then I realized that there's also a value in having to move, because when you do move, you tend to review things, and you tend to it moves like it gets you out of your habits, allows you to be less stuck because you're constantly reviewing things. So it sounds like you're getting some sort of experience here in a way where it's just like, oh, I'm not eating, so what should I do instead? Okay, what if I keep on working?
Yeah.
And it's funny because yesterday I had a conversation with Coach Rich. I was working with him in the afternoon, and we were talking about, he said, Laurie bought me a salad, so that's great. And he said, sometimes I can go all day and realize I haven't eaten. I was like, never had that experience.
Me neither.
Like, I never, no way. Like I'd eat every given opportunity. I'd eat, like I very rarely get full. And I think there's some training I put into myself from when it came from bodybuilding back in the day. But yeah, so that's awesome. So not hungry, but noticing some cravings, being more attached, not more attached, more aware of the thoughts coming in or out. All right, keep going, what else?
Um, this is our podcast. We can say whatever we want on it, right? So I may be at some point uh, experimenting with some mushrooms
All right.
to really to really ratchet up the sensations. So yeah, we'll see. Maybe we'll have an interesting next episode if we have one at all. No, it'll be fine, I'm sure.
All right. That's definitely intriguing. I'm intrigued to see what as it relates to fasting, or just a different situation
Um,
overall.
I've taken them before, so the ones I'm referring to are in like a chocolate bar form. I don't know if you've heard of this or experienced it yet.
No.
But yeah, it's you know, it's a psychedelic. Obviously, the psilocybin is in the chocolate, and I've done it before, and I think it pulls down my ego. This might be a good way to describe that. So
Mm,
it's
mm.
interesting. It's almost like depending on the dosage that you take. I've never really taken a really strong dose, but the ones that I've taken that were smaller, it's almost like I can't stay on a particular subject or theme or like thread. Like my mind, you know how like our mind filters things and whatever it's stuck on is like there's something there for it to learn from. I was like you don't even you lose the ability to do that when you're under the influence. And so you're in a state of flow of going from one thing to the next and you
Oh, I
can't really
see.
stick on something like let me think of that. Like your mind can't get in the way, which I really enjoy.
Mm, that's interesting. All right, that's cool. So that's next, as in like the next experiment. But like when? So how long does this? You said this goes on for how long?
So 3 days, I'm on day number 2.
All right.
Yeah.
So 3 days. So when is it up? When's the first meal?
It'll be tomorrow. Well, tomorrow will be the third day, so probably the day after tomorrow.
What's crazy for me is that you don't know. It's sometime in the day. So sometime in the 24 hours of the day. But you haven't even.
Yeah, I
So you
don't have
haven't
a plan of
actually.
like this will be the 72nd hour and I'm gonna feast. Like I don't know. That's not why I'm doing
All
it.
right.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. I just love it. It's like it's 3 days and just it's somewhere in that, and I'll go
Yeah,
where I
I'll
need
eat
to
when I
go.
eat.
Yeah, that's
And
pretty
that
cool.
that may come out of this like we talk about all the time like unintended benefits. I'm thinking just maybe I come out with like a new eating routine, or I'm not as focused on it, or kind of like the Coach Rich. I'll eat when I have time. I wouldn't recommend that, and maybe that's not what happens. But I don't know. Something I'm open to whatever comes out of it. That I think it's maybe a healthier way to approach eating than just it's time to eat. I'm going to eat. Um, but I don't know. We'll see what happens with that.
Mm. It's definitely a social thing when we because I think about my girls like it's there's a training that happens. It's like it's time to eat now. Like there's a real practical piece from it because you don't want them going to bed and going, oh, I'm hungry. Like we've just done a whole bath time thing. Like we just read stories for 15 minutes. Like we're about to turn the lights off, and like now you want some yogurt. Like it's not cool.
Yeah.
So there's a practical piece for it, I suppose, as well. But yeah, that's interesting to think about. All right, cool.
Yeah, and
Uh,
it's funny you say that. I might even remember from my childhood. I think that tactic was so that I could stay up later. So it's
yeah,
interesting all the ways that we use food a lot at an unconscious level of like doing something else. And um, not that I don't know. Maybe I have been running from or avoiding or just choosing not to feel certain emotions, and that's been the most interesting part so far is that I'm noticing more things in my body because there's less for it to process right now.
Anything else you've noticed that you'd share that's been intriguing for you?
Um, like under that category, or
Yeah.
you mean like all categories?
Well, in the last 36 hours or so, whatever it is, 40 hours.
I just think the sensation thing is interesting because that's what I'm most closely monitoring, which is why I did it. Like, how does my body feel? And I think I've learned that I've maybe betrayed my body, or I've abandoned it, or I haven't listened to it as much as I could. And I think a lot of I do a lot of work on like ego projection or like taking responsibility for my own energy, a bit of a chapter from John's Eve, if you will. I want to become more conscious of things that I unconsciously project, or things that are going on at the unconscious level. And this is my experiment to see what I can tap into.
Hmm. All right. And so where do you want to go from here? Like, have you got more mental capability as well now? Like, is there a more
Yeah, I got superpowers over here.
yeah.
I think a thought and it comes to fruition. No, I guess it's more just stepping out of my comfort zone. About that a lot at the last episode of, this might be a version of moving away from pain and towards pleasure at the same time.
Hmm.
Or even like, because there is some pain that's being brought on by not, for lack of a better term, starving myself, but I'm starving myself of my my habits or tendencies that I think, at least in my interpretation, don't really serve me. So, to your point and to your question, I think the mental capacity. I'm just. I've already gotten some quote unquote results on day one with less than 24 hours and with like some of my journaling stuff.
Hmm.
So that was pretty cool. And I have a whole bunch of time carved out after we record this to really sit with and be with myself again. So more stuff I'm sure will come out.
Think about the the space that you're creating, right? It's like that's what it is, right? You have more ways to create space and more awareness. Is that what you're creating? Does it feel like that?
Yeah, space and awareness for sure. I picked these 3 days because there's really nothing else going on, at least at night, which I usually have night commitments.
All right. What would you share on this stuff then that would make this? Should we? Is this an experiment that like I mean, you're doing? Like, is it something you'd share? Like, would you recommend? Like, is it too early to tell? Like, is there any? Where else would you say?
Yeah, we should put out maybe a disclaimer that I'm not a doctor. I probably I'm not recommending that you go on a fast and take mushrooms. Definitely for not. Don't do that unless that's your decision. But yeah, maybe there's a wrap up part or a second episode that we do with my
Yeah.
reflections here. But um, yeah, I think maybe my final thought on it is just that, like you mentioned, the space of it. What I really valued is being able to carve out this experiment for me because it's something that I want to do. I'm interested in it. It's I'm curious about it, and I think a lot of times I get caught up in the hustle bustle of this obligation, this one. I'm really trying to run around less and be committed to less things and sit with that, because usually when that happens, I get antsy. I don't like it. I don't, there's a reason that I have things scheduled. So if I'm honest with myself, I really want that lifestyle to where I can sit there and be blissfully happy without doing anything. And not that I lose all my motivation to accomplish anything or make an impact or add value to people's lives, but I want to be able to sit there and just enjoy my company that I'm in and have no pressure to like, what's the next thing I have to rush off to. I'm just kind of sitting with that. So that's part of what's coming up is I feel really antsy, and I'm doing a lot of journaling about that and seeing what comes from it.
That's really interesting to me too, because you always strike me as a person that really doesn't get pulled from one thing to the next. That always has calm and space between those things. So it's really intriguing to hear you say that.
Hmm. Yeah, I think any sort of obligation feels like a trap to me. um, there's some belief systems in there, but and it's partly true, partly not, which is just the truth about any belief system, right? But I feel like the less obligated I am to things that are on my calendar, the more free that I am. And I think that's ultimately what I yearn for, is the freedom to do what I want, to come and go as I please, to connect with the people that I want to connect with. And it's almost like an oxymoron, or like if once I do that and I identify that, then I'm committed to that. Right. And there's, say I do find people there's always a commitment level um, or obligation, quote unquote. So I'm just being reflective about that. What's the optimal way, or do I have to play that game?
Yeah, it's kind of like when people say, "Oh, I'm not focused. I want to get focused." Well, it's not that you're not focused. It's just that you don't like what you're focused on. It's not an on or off deal. It's where's it. It's just what direction's it in.
Right.
Is that what you're saying about commitment as well? Like if you're wherever you are, you're committed to something. If you're committed to not being committed, that's where you're committed. You know, it's like
Yeah.
I'm committed to being flexible. Oh, so I'm committed to not being committed. It's like, oh, okay. It can't, but yeah, so there's a, what you're trying to run away from something that you can't run away from. But yeah, but if you're saying all I'm doing is well, not running away, but all I'm doing is not being connected. It's a commitment to be not connected.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So what do you think you're going to get to? And where do you? What's the realization you were expecting that might? I know you don't know, but that you might get to.
Um, what I would love to happen, and maybe I'll set intentions for this
Hmm.
and do my own exploration,
Hmm.
is for me to discover more about myself. Um, just tuning into the part of the emotional conversation, or like the sensations and the feelings in my body. It is my belief system that our body locks in experiences that we have over our lifetime. There's stuff in there from childhood, so there's I've been on this path of addressing a lot of those things, or buzzword is healing. Like sometimes part of healing is just becoming aware of what's going on, and like how you're impacted by it. So I'm a big believer, I don't know how you feel about this, but like childhood quote unquote trauma, or if you have an experience that impacts you in such a way that you almost fragment yourself in such a way, like you abandon yourself, or you don't love that version of you, and it shows up in a shadow form. And so we just recorded an episode with Zeev about projectionism, and that's what I've learned is the definition of that, and that my unconscious or my shadow version of myself can do damage to myself and other people. And I think getting back in touch with that, and um, like doing the healing modality, I think is really what I would like to focus on with this. I've already done that a little bit, but over these next 2 days, will probably be my focus as well.
I guess how do you find out those things? I always find that very intriguing because that this is a big challenge for me. How do you find them out? Find those things out?
Which
Is it
ones?
when you find you're behaving in a certain way that you don't want to behave? You're
It's
thinking
more
about
of,
certain things you want to
yeah.
think.
So that's a great question. The way I identify it is I'm in a situation where I don't feel good. I feel trapped. I feel angry. I feel an emotion that maybe is unwanted. That's the indicator for me that there's somebody in my reality that's mirroring something back about me.
Okay.
I watched a great video that I'll share with you afterwards, that talks about like the science behind this and how it works, and everything in we were only able to experience our reality through our own perceptions and our own experience.
Yeah.
Right, which so it talks about like when you see something, it's a reflection of yourself. So if you judge somebody else, if somebody else does makes you angry, you're judging that in your own self. And so I resisted that for the longest time. How is that possible? Like there's no way. And like when you get to the root of it, there's something that comes up with like, oh, holy shit. And then you go back to it and you like address it, and there's a whole process for it.
Yeah. It's continually fascinating. Uh, yeah. So the thing that pops into mind for me is then the resistance of I talked about before about having looking at your calendar, and then if there's a call, you got like, oh, this is a thing I've wanted to do. I set this up, and I look at the calendar. I've got someone on the calendar. I'm like, there's a resistance to that. And so for me, that's a cue for I need to do something. It's either I need to do something that I said I'd do and I haven't done it, either between me and that person, or
Mm-hmm.
how I'm representing the relationship. So either I haven't cleared something up, I haven't asked clear enough questions to make sure that the fit is good or not. So there's like it's unclear, it's unresolved, or yeah, I just haven't done something in that week that I said I would do.
Mm.
Those are usually the two things. Is this something different for you? Is it that too of a simplistic view? Like, what do you think?
No, so that's a good example. I guess my perception is if I don't know, let's come up with something a little bit more specific. So if I see something on the calendar, and let's say it's unrelated to something that I've done, but like I see this person, I feel like what's a good feeling, or what's a feeling that not a good feeling, but like a feeling that like we have resistance to.
Well, for
Like I'm
me,
not looking forward to. This person doesn't really bring me joy, or they've been frustrating me because the things that we've set out to do, they're not doing it. They're not
right.
engaged.
Yeah, like anything where you're like, oh, like anything other than, oh, this is just going to be like I work at the job anyway. It's going to be great.
Yeah.
Anything other than that,
Yeah. And
that's
so does that
actually
have to
good.
do with the person, do you think, or the momentum that you have with the person, or do some people ebb and flow, and like sometimes you're enjoying it and sometimes you're not?
Yes, but it also the question comes back to me. So what am I doing here?
Yeah.
Am I making it about them this relationship versus is it something else I'm bringing to it?
Right.
Like so this morning in my group, one of the guys showed up late and he's got some significant problems going on with his family and he said, look, I really thought about not showing up today, and he said it's a testament to the group and I felt a responsibility to show up. And it's one of the things, values that we work on is that expect that sometimes you won't want to show up, right? Like we literally call that out and so it's okay. Like if you don't want to, it's okay. Wherever you are, it's okay. Just show up and it will be better than not. And he honored that. It was great. And so there's nothing to do about what's happening in the group. It's just about something else in his life that he's bringing to that. But just being clear about it kind of melts that away in that moment in some senses. Is it the same? Is it something else? Because I'm trying to get really understand this better.
Yeah. I would say it's more about the way that you feel about somebody else. So there's these subtle little judgments that we make that we're usually not even aware of.
Yeah.
But like maybe say like he prioritized, business over family or something like that. There might be such a subtle like, oh wow, and then you just go right into coach mode with like, okay, let's talk through this. But that little moment is the only time that will show up with like, oh, maybe I judged him, or maybe something came up that is for me here. And I guess that's the purpose of the fast and the feeling into thing is to catch those moments because you only get one, and then you're off and running with what you're talking about.
Hmm.
So if you want the full enchilada, it'd be like he prioritized his business over family. I'm judging that. I might be judging that myself. When is the time that I prioritize my business over my family? And there's a version of yourself, and you can go back into that time and space, and you're rejecting that version. You hate that version. You discard that version. And the idea is that you go back and you accept that version, and you show love to it, and then you get the energy back. So the idea is that you lose the energy that you had of that particular version of you, and because it's missing in you, it will show up outside in somebody else, so to get you to pay attention to it.
I mean, how do you know that you're making progress in this stuff? Is it just that like you have less of those moments?
Yeah. So the idea
But
is once
everything's
you go
okay.
back to address, and there might be multiple situations, but say that was the only time you ever prioritized business over family. Um, you go back, you do the work, and then the theory is, and I've experienced this, the situation, now that you're aware of it and you've addressed it, it has no purpose in me. Like it won't show up because you're not giving off the opposite of that, like the lack of that energy inside you. So you won't come up, and it has to do with the emotion, the feeling that you felt. So it could be like anger at yourself or like whatever that was. It's hard to describe sometimes, right? That's the, I think our language fails us when we go to really describe what's happening inside our bodies. But it's the idea that once we address it, then the situations don't have to keep manifesting in our world, and like we've conquered it, and something else will come up in its stead.
So the ultimate version here is that everything you can flow through everything without having an emotional reaction. Well,
um,
I don't know.
yeah, partly that, but partly the exact opposite of I'm able to sit with my emotions as they come in and not unconsciously like redirect them or ignore them. I do that. We do that all the time. We don't even know. I've caught myself in this fast doing that. It's just like something as simple as like my stomach doesn't feel good when I talk to this person.
Yeah, I never would think about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, Coach. Well, I look forward to the next one here because it'd be good to recap on what your findings are, and maybe we'll have some bullet points or something we can dig into. But intriguing.
Yeah. And if you're at all open to this, and I want to throw this out for the listeners and the watchers as well, the guy's name, I'm going to send you this video. You can watch it. You don't have to. His name is Aaron Abke, Abke, and just look for the video that he posted. It's called Projection, and it's probably about 16 minutes long, and he's very good and articulate, and he's easy to listen to, and it's just so informative. And I think I really enjoyed it. Now I'm making this my focus. So I'll send it to you, but we'll put it in the show notes as well for other people. All right. See you next time.
Thank you for watching another episode of Truth Seekers. We appreciate your interaction. So please comment, like, subscribe to YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you want more, check out some of our links. Links to our masterclass, The Achiever's Mindset, and come join our LinkedIn group. And what do you want to see more of? Remember, we're here to share the simple secrets of successful. So help us do that. What do you want to see? What do you want to see more of? Thanks, and see you again next time.